I'm your host, Mark Zasky, filling in for Carrie Arnold. What's up, Daniela? We got Miss Daniela tonight with us.
How you doing? Kerry's busy making sure that the documentary is working its way up to the all through those tubes to YouTube for us all to see.
Right.
Hopefully soon.
That's right. I've had those same issues. The long night uploading.
Frustrated is what he called himself. He was on there. He was on live last night. He called himself frustrated for his name tag.
I'm sure it can be for sure. So we got a good
86%.
show.
Sorry, Kerry's just told me 86% it's at. So come on.
86%. So it's almost there.
Yeah.
Well, based on what he was telling me, that's like another 10 hours. So, but it's being uploaded. So that's the new film coming from Bigfoot Odyssey here. I'm thinking that's probably tomorrow, right? Be live tomorrow here on your channel, right?
Let's not say anything. Let's just wait for the magic to happen, and then
Well, if everything goes right. So
yeah.
Well, tonight we got a good show for you. We've got an eyewitness we're going to be talking with tonight. He's going to lay his encounters out for you here on Bigfoot Odyssey, and this guy's been hunting for most of his life, and he's from Missouri. So the encounters that we're talking about tonight are going to be from the Missouri region, the state of Missouri, and so it's my understanding that he has a couple of them to talk about. So without any further ado, we'd like to welcome Miquel Ramirez to the show. Sasquatch Theory. Is that your YouTube channel, Miguel?
No, I just came up with it. I didn't realize my name was going to be on the screen. I'm looking down. I'm like, I'll put my name there.
Okay. Well, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Excited.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. How long you been curious about this subject?
I mean, I probably got into it, I'd say probably like 5-6 years ago. You know, when the show started coming out on TV, really. But
Travel Channel, Discovery Channel, all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What's your favorite show?
My favorite show, I think it's called Terror in the Woods on Travel Channel. I think that's what it's called.
Okay. I'll have to check that one out, man. I was always a Destination Truth guy. I always liked Josh Gates, the first 5-6 seasons of Destination Truth. You ever seen that, Danielle?
I haven't seen that one. No.
That's a good show, man. Good show. So okay, so Miguel, hunting. You've been hunting. We had a brief moment before the show to talk. You said something right around 20, 21 years, somewhere in there.
Yeah, right around 20, 21 years.
So that basically is. You were telling me you're 28, so you've been hunting most of your life, and have you lived in these rural areas, or are you in the same area you grew up in? And you said something about being surrounded by woods on all sides. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I've lived around here my whole life. So.
All right, man. Well, why don't you do us a favor, man? Do us a favor. Lay out what's going on and set the scene for what was going on when you first noticed one of these creatures in the areas that you were hunting.
Okay, well, like we were talking about, I started off with the TV shows, and it really piqued my interest. And, I just kind of thought it's kind of on the paranormal side, or maybe there really is something to it, same basic thoughts as anybody else, really. But, I'd see all that on TV. And then one day I walked out into the woods, and I started noticing that there was a cedar tree that was broken. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it just snapped in half, probably about 6 feet high, and it was just super fresh, but it was right next to my hunting spot. I knew that tree was there, and there's no tree that fell over. There's nothing around it. So that's kind of what got me started. And I was like, all right, there could be something here. And then that was about it. I just noticed that kind of stuff. And then I would say it was probably 4 years ago when the real encounter started. I was camping out on the Merrimack River with the girlfriend and her kid. And It was just a typical day, you know, floaters going by, just people partying on the river. But then, you know, once it gets later, you know, the river clears out. There's no one out there. And it was probably about 30, 40 minutes till dark. And I started doing whoop sounds, you know, kind of like what I saw in Finding Bigfoot, just messing around. And then probably about 30 seconds after that, across the river, there's bluffs on both sides. So I could hear just something coming through the woods, but it was far, you know, probably about 300 yards. And then it just sounded like a huge tree crashed down. And I'm not talking about just, you know, small tree. I'm talking about a giant tree. And it was comparable to the sound of when someone chainsaws, cuts down a big tree, you know, when it comes crashing down through the forest and you can hear limbs and everything snapping and breaking. It sounded just like that. And, you know, I looked over at my girlfriend. I was like, oh, do you hear that? You know, I was excited, you know. But then again, you know, it's just another sound in the woods. You know, you can't really put anything to it. Then it was almost dark, probably about 10 minutes till it got dark. And I did some tree knocks and probably like a couple, no, it got dark after that. Did some tree knocks and it got dark. And we were sitting at the campfire. She put the kid to bed. She put him to bed early that night. He was tired. You know, he'd been running around playing on the river all day. But we were just sitting there hanging out. And I don't know if it was 30 seconds or 20 minutes, honestly, after the wood knock. But about 30, 40 yards behind us on our side of the river, something just screams. I mean, loud, like super loud. And it didn't sound like a cat. It was like two-toned, but it wasn't a low and a high. It was like a high and another high. It kind of sounded like a metal vocalist from a metal band, you know, screaming like that intense. But yeah, and it screamed about 8 or 9 feet high. So I mean, that's where it really kicked off. And the girlfriend, you know, she looked at me and she's like, get the gun. And I was just smiling from ear to ear. I'm like, all right. You know, I wasn't even thinking about gun. I was just like, that was awesome. You know,
A Sasquatch.
I was excited. Yeah. Cause you know, you want it to be real so bad, you know, but yeah, it happened. And yeah, she was scared. She was worried. And we continued on that whole night, you know, just talking about it. Everything was real quiet and nothing else really happened that night.
Wow. Okay. So here you are. You've got 20 plus years under your belt in the woods. You're an experienced woodsman. I understand the concept of having grown up and done those kind of things. I was always out there myself. You know what I mean? So in Ohio, until we moved to Florida, we were always out there. You know what I mean? So it's like you learn stuff. You know what I mean? You learn what stuff sounds like. So in your opinion, was it anything that you've ever heard before, the screams? Anything,
No,
resemble anything like that? Like anything you heard?
No, I mean, but I've never heard a mountain lion either. But I mean, that night I went home, or not that night, but the next day, you know, I looked on my phone on YouTube and I typed in mountain lion sounds, cougar sounds. And I mean, they do have some wicked sounds, but the velocity, I don't know, the level of the volume, that was no cat, you know? Like, why would a cat come up to where we're whooping, doing wood knocks, hanging out at, and get 30 feet behind us, get up in a tree and scream at us, you know?
Yeah.
It just don't make sense. For an
I get
animal
it.
that's
I get
trying to avoid people.
I get that. What do you think, Daniela?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Why, whether the wood knocks attracted it and it was giving you something back, or did you feel anything off the scream in any way? Physically, did you feel it? You know?
No, like some people say, like it hits you in the chest, you know, you can feel it. It wasn't like that, but it was really loud, you know, it was definitely loud for sure.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, that's not anything that's uncommon either. We've heard plenty of different yells and from a distance and up close. that were
Mhm.
from other types of individuals. The big males, though, typically will rumble your whole chest, and it's, you know what I mean. But so it could have been a smaller one. It could have been a female one. You never know. I mean, we've heard a lot of that kind of stuff, so you never know.
It's hard to tell. Yeah.
But it
I
is
As far as
the point you raised, Daniela, about the initiation of contact, and then that happens. See, those are the keys. Like, you know what I'm hearing. You know what I mean? So typically, wildlife that's classified wildlife has a tendency to move away from disturbance, not towards it. You know what I mean? So
I just wonder if there's a progression of how they, whether they scream and then they throw rocks and then they become a bit more, whether they have a pattern of how they're going to get rid of someone or scare someone. I don't know if you've ever noticed anything like that yourself.
Yeah. Well, have you had any? Oh, me?
Sorry.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the other side of the coin, if it just depends on what the motivation is, you can experience a myriad of it, right? Because sometimes they're trying to take advantage of your situation. You're camping and you have coolers with food and meat, and they watch. They must watch. They know right where to go in these places, and it seems that they've developed these kind of habits. But what you're talking about is a situation where there's tourists there constantly and people having fun floating down the river on tubes and that kind of stuff, right, Miguel?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's it's highly likely that they're paying attention to that area. I think one of the things we see is that they push game up against human activity. It makes it easier for them to get it, because then it's not like the game wants to come into the areas where the humans are at, and so there's this perimeter kind of. And there's like this gray area, and the camping areas that we've witnessed very similar things like that. Literally what you said about the tubes, in one particular spot in the state of Florida, we were watching the inner tubes, people floating by, shooting pictures, beautiful spring situation where we had a natural spring. The Swanee River was down at the end of it. And we're hearing somebody tear apart a cypress tree, literally ripping apart a cypress tree. You could hear the sinew of the tree as he was breaking chunks off the bottom where the hollows are at. There's a lot of stuff that lives up in there. Could have been a possum, I don't know. But the interesting thing is it was plain as day. Melanie and I are looking, going, "Are you hearing this?" And she's like, "I can't believe this." And there's a guy down there watching his kids, and he turns around and he looks, and he's hearing it. And then he just goes back to like the inner tube thing, watching the kids, So yeah, I think that's pretty common actually in areas like what you're describing. From what we can tell, those same type of experiences are happening here in Florida too. So please continue with your situation and what led to what you had described in the pre-show when we were talking. You said you got a good look at one or two of them, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Go back to that moment and tell us what happened that day and what was going on and why you were there and all that, and take us into that moment where you had the awakening.
Okay, so talk about the actual experience of my actual eyewitness encounter, or?
Yes.
Okay. Just before it or the whole thing?
Fill us in, man. Whatever you feel like doing is great, man. I think the more information that you can give, it's just better for everybody, because this is the kind of thing where sometimes, and I don't know your encounter, you get these brief glimpses of the situation, and you're involved in a circumstance where it's sudden, and then there's an immense amount of data you can retrieve from something like that. So lay it out for us. Take yourself back to that moment and lay it out for us.
All right, I'll get into the last three encounters.
Okay.
We can go back in time if you guys want to hear the others. But anyways, I was coming home from in town. We probably live about a mile from town, not very far. And instead of going home and going all the way down the road and parking in the parking lot right in front of my house, I stopped at the top of the driveway, probably about, 250, 300 yards. So I always come home and park in the same spot. Well, this time I was like, I'm going to check this deer camera, because I'm up here. So I parked my Mustang, got out, and I was checking the camera, got back to the car, I was just standing there looking around, and then all of a sudden at the end of the road, like it goes from my driveway, and it comes up and kind of goes around. Well, I was parked at the end of that, and I was standing there just not even paying attention. And at the end of the driveway, I hear just like that, a loud whistle. And I thought, oh, my dad's coming, you know, what's my dad doing up here? He never comes up here. You know, he's a mechanic. He's working on cars or, you know, doing something to keep him busy. He's not out in the woods looking for me. But, you know, I'm looking, weird, you know, that's definitely a person. And then 30 yards in front of me, I hear same whistle. And then to the right of me, I hear same whistle. But I mean, this is loud, like a person that has farm property that's whistling at their cows or something. And I didn't know what to think of it. I'm like, man, is there someone out there in the woods? I didn't say anything, but I'm just like looking, and nothing. I didn't hear any sounds. I didn't see any shadows or anything, no animal movements. So really, I didn't think much of it. I mean, I did think Sasquatch, but then, you know, I'm just thinking, you know, is there a person out there? So I get home, and then I really start thinking about it. I don't know if that happens to you, Mark. Like when you have an encounter, it takes you a while. It takes you like a day or two to know, you know, okay, yeah, there's something going on there. But
yeah, well, there's the initial what's going on here, you know. I had that same situation in North Carolina. I went to the back of we had just pulled into the property, walked to the back of the driveway, and on 3 sides we got whistles. And they were equilaterally spaced around 45 to 50 feet apart up the ridge, you know, in front of me and all this. And so I can relate to that. Now, I was already prepared and I was there for that. So I kind of knew already they had been throwing rocks at a guy that was dozing back there. He'd been slamming that big bucket into the side of the mountain, and I think they were pissed. So they started throwing rocks at him. So we anticipated it, but I still understand to walk up there and it's actually happening. And it's like, you know, there's a lot of doubt in the situation. You know, I don't know. How did you feel when you were standing there and there were these whistles coming on different sides, you know?
Yeah, I was like, Dad. And then, you know, I'm thinking hunter in the woods, trespasser, neighbor. I don't know, you know, who's in the woods whistling at me? I mean, it's no different than, you know, someone playing a trick on you and whistling at you and hiding, you know. It's the exact same thing, sounding the same. But yeah, it definitely turned my radar on.
Now, this is on your property, is that correct?
This is like, I mean, I could walk there in like 3-4 minutes right
Okay.
now.
So it's like the end of the drive and that kind of thing. And there's woods all around your house. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all around. So I can go in the woods and hunt anywhere I want. I mean,
Okay.
There's 2 creeks that one runs behind our property and the other one parallels in front of it.
How far? Now, here's a great question for you, right? In your estimation, and you know where the creeks run, was the whistling coming from anywhere near one of the creeks or where the creek ran through that area?
Drainage ditches leading to the creeks. That's where the deer move.
Okay.
And that's why my cameras were there, because I was really locking down. I was really locking down the bucks. You know, really figuring out where they were moving.
Okay.
Which I knew that's where I've always seen them at. So.
And something else was in there now in those drainage ditches, whistling.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened next? What happened next?
Structures are at.
Excuse me. Say that again.
This is like where I found all the structures at and the tree breaks too. So.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
was telling you guys about earlier.
So you got you got signatures, and now you're having these live experiences, and on your, and it's close to your house. Did you go over that in your head at all? That this is by my house, like this is not okay, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I started watching your show after this encounter.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So okay. Continue, please. From the whistles, you said something about the next day you started really thinking about this.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just thinking about this real deep, you know, just breaking down my reality, which, you know, I knew that what I was being told wasn't exactly true, which everybody knows that. You know, you go to school and the books that everything you've learned, you know, from the 80s, they toss those and bring in new books. So I was, you know, aware of, you know, you can't listen to everything you hear on the internet or what you see on TV. And I just kept thinking about it, and about 2 weeks went on, and I started looking for edible mushrooms out in the woods, just kind of like chicken of the woods, chanterelles, things like that. And I'm also looking for this creature, mind you, because, you know, I heard the whistles, so it's like I don't want to go out in the woods where there's just so many ticks, mosquitoes, snakes, poison ivy. You know, I don't want to go out there for nothing. So if I'm going to be out in the woods, I'm going to be looking for arrowheads or something to keep my mind busy, you know. And that's what I was doing. I found plenty of mushrooms, and I was coming back to my house, and I mean, this is like at the edge of my yard over there. Sorry. And coming back to the house, and I hear something, and it sounded more like a squirrel than a deer. You know, you just hear like something ruffling in the leaves. So I looked to my left, and what I saw was a big, like, all right, so he was like 6 feet tall, but he was like hunched over, you know, like crouched down on the ground. That's why I think he was looking for mushrooms too, because they were growing. They only grow at certain times of the year, and you really got to get in there if you want to find them. You kind of got to know what you're doing. But yeah, he was crouched down. He got up and immediately like walked off. Sorry, the screen's got me messed up. He walked off, but he did the whole Patty look at me. You know, if you ever seen the Patterson Gimlin film, how she looks over at the camera, that's exactly what he did. He looked over. He was really mad, just mad. He didn't express it like with sounds, but he just walked off, and he was mad, and he like looked over at me. But on his back, he was all right. He was solid black, like a jet black color, and on his back he had like two stripes going down from his shoulder blade, like right above his tailbone. So one going down one side of his back, another one going down the other side. It was like a whitish gray. They're like lightning stripes. So he was jet black, and he had two like skunk stripes kind of going down his back. And he had also two patches on his calves, like on the back of his legs. So he had a little bit of white in there. But I mean, I was almost to the yard, and I was almost to my yard, and he walked off. Like he went into the thick oak trees and just a bunch of brush. You know, he kind of disappeared. So I was on my way to the house, and I cut around to the other side of the yard where he was going, and I kind of cut him off. And when I got there, I couldn't see him because it was so thick. I mean, this is early summer, so it's really thick in the woods. And I was standing there, and I was just looking into the woods. There's like this fence line that kind of separates the yard from the woods, and I kind of crossed over that fence, and that's when I could hear him like I don't know, snorting at me, or I don't know, just he was very irritated. You could just hear like he was doing a sound. And I know what deer sound like. Like I've been bumping deer since I was a little kid, you know. And deer normally, like when they blow, they're running off and blowing. They'll stop and maybe look behind their shoulder to make sure you're not following them, and they'll blow and keep running off. But he stood his ground, and he wasn't happy. You know, he's definitely pissed for sure.
Any other sounds?
I feel like if I would have went, no, just that breathing sound. And
you hear the inhale? Did you hear the inhale or just the exhale?
There's two different sounds, like a, I don't know how to explain it really, like a, I don't know. It was just a frustrated sound. I mean, really.
Okay.
But I mean, after that, in my mind, I was like, that's all I need. That's all I need. Like, this is awesome. You know, like I got my evidence, you know, like now I know for sure, you know, that there's something out there. And when I got back home, about a week after I got back home, you know, after I had that sighting, You know, I was in my house watching Colorado Bigfoot, crypto reality, you know, and I really got sucked in. You know, I was really mad at myself for leaving, for not standing my ground, because I don't know, more could have happened, you know. And yeah, I started watching those shows on YouTube, especially crypto reality, like what you were showing as far as like how they like to hide and where they like to hide, and just paying attention to the habitat and the different habitat changes. You know, just kind of what you're going off in the camera, you know, going from swamp to really thick areas. You know, I can kind of base that off here, you know, going to the creek to thick areas in the woods. You know, it just really opened up my mind. I was really thinking about it. I was just deeply thinking about it. I was really in tuned.
You seem quite pleased that you had an encounter. Like you seem quite happy that you got to see one. Did it not? Were you not shocked at what you saw in any way? Did it affect you in any way?
No, that's the weird thing. No, that's the strange thing, because like all the documentaries I saw, TV shows, people are like, you know, hit me in the chest, you know, scared, or I was paralyzed with fear or whatever. Like, no, this is no different than me seeing like a monster trophy whitetail, you know, where you're just looking, trying to see every detail that you can see before it runs off and gets away. And that's kind of how it was for me, you know. It's just like I just saw the biggest deer in the world. So it was more excitement than fear. But yeah, I can understand like why people are scared. They charged, yeah.
It's a rush, man. It's a rush when they're right there.
Yeah.
It's a rush. So that was basically your first face-to-face, right? So I want to go back. Stuff you said he was around 6 feet tall, but he was crouched over. Was that 6 feet tall even though he was squatting, or was he 6 feet tall when he stood up?
Yeah, he was like 6 feet tall when he stood up. Like he wasn't, you know, like some people say like they're up to like 9 feet tall. Like no, he was just like a tall person, but he was really big. I mean, the best way I can describe him is like a gorilla, but not as clumsy walking as a gorilla, but more upright. You know, it had the arm swing and everything, but it was definitely an old one. Like I could tell in its face that it was old. Like you could see the wrinkles, like on his forehead, I could see the wrinkles. And like I said, he was mad. Like he looked mad, you know, he just like, that's how he looked like when he walked off. He just looked pissed, honestly.
And
I think he was really old.
Compared to the individuals that you see on the Bigfoot Odyssey background, what's the resemblance, what you saw to those individuals, or did it appear to be different? In what ways was it different from these two individuals that you can see in the background?
Honestly, it was like the one that's behind you.
Okay.
But the chest, I mean, it still had a big chest, but it wasn't as like barrel chested as that one, you know. It was just like a buff dude, you know, where it, you know, it V's down, you know.
Yeah.
So
in the face, you said it looked angry. What did if it was looking angry, was its lips pursed, and were they thin? Describe the face if you can, what you can remember of it.
See, it's hard for me. All right. Well, the thing is like it was really dark. So, I mean, the best way I can describe it is like, I mean, the hair wasn't long, you know, it was probably like, I'd say like an inch or two, and it was jet black. And like above on the face, like there wasn't as much hair covering the actual face, but it was still like a charcoal gray. It was pretty dark, but it wasn't as black as the fur. And
so you could see a color difference, is what you're saying, between the skin and the hair.
Yeah, I mean, like the lips, like I said, it was all dark, but like I could see detail. Like I can't tell like if the lips were black or if they're like a purple black. You know what I mean?
Or just their shape. What did they appear to be? You know, full, or were they thin? Could you make any of that out?
I mean,
not really.
It's really hard for me to describe it. Really, I mean, it is.
I know. I've been through it. I know. You know. I know.
It's just like.
Could you smell anything? Did you pick up any
Not
smell or
that
anything?
time. I didn't smell anything that time, but
No.
I did encounter smells later on. Yeah.
So this is incidents now that have been happening, and really what's going on is there's a case history that you're witnessing, right? And when I as an investigator, when I go into the field or I get called to consult on a project or on something that's going on, typically there is a case history, and you need to know that, right? It's not it in these situations. Most people will realize, like the Woodsman in particular, that they've been there. And it's like, take Kerry, for instance, and talking with Kerry and interviewing him on several different occasions and talking to him, over the course of 2016, when we first started to talk, he started to relate things that were going on long before he saw the creature, right? Because there were things he couldn't explain, but he would attribute to known animals because that's the way it all works, right? So in this case history that's developing, how were you handling all of that? Because at this point now, right? And here, how far away from your house literally was the sighting?
It was probably like 20 yards from the yard in the woods.
Yeah. So how'd that make you feel? I mean, you had to be feeling uncomfortable about that right there by your house, right?
Say that again.
You had to be feeling uncomfortable about that close to your home.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I always kind of, I saw the structures, the tree breaks, so I don't know. I'm really open to it, I guess.
So you kind of knew, you were kind of expecting it at that point.
Yeah, I was looking for it, really. And looking for whatever I could find, mushrooms, arrowheads.
Miguel, can you describe the markings again on the stripes?
Okay, so like from like my shoulder blade right there down to right here above, like, the butt area, there's like a lightning stripe, like, I don't know, a lightning shaped kind of whitish gray stripe that goes straight down its back, up and down. And then on the other shoulder blade down above its butt, there was another one. So pretty much 2 stripes. And then on the calf, there's 2 more, but kind of similar to a skunk, but a little bit more grayish. But
so not quite as white, but gray.
Yeah, but not gray either. So
I know what you mean. So okay, so what happened then? Go on, lay it out, man.
The next encounter.
Well, what did you do after that? Did you start setting up anything, or what were you thinking about how you were gonna? Because it seems like you're interested now to try to catch him on film, right? At that point, were you thinking about trying to capture him on film?
Yeah, it's just weird the way everything played together because I've been working on a outdoor YouTube hunting channel, and I just bought it's a Panasonic 4K camera. And I just bought that before all this started happening. So yeah, after that encounter with the old Squatch, I started going out in the woods every single day, every day walking around there. And at the same time, like I said, I was watching Colorado Bigfoot, Crypto Reality, Bigfoot Odyssey, getting into all that and really learning a lot more. So if I would have thought that was just a squirrel sound, I wouldn't have looked and I wouldn't have seen it. So it really makes me think, like, when I'm hunting, every time I hear a squirrel and that squirrel doesn't present itself, it's gonna, I wonder, is that a Squatch or
possibility, right? Because now it is a possibility.
They just kind of sound like a squirrel or something, just kind of going along. They can sound like a deer. They can sound like a tractor moving through the woods if they wanted to.
Yeah. Well, it's like you, right?
Yeah, really.
There's like a difference between you walking to your hunting spot and you in hunting mode sneaking around. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing. This is just like hunting. They're doing that. So
yeah,
it makes sense.
People aren't paying attention. That's honestly what's going on. Like, people don't want to believe. They don't care to listen. They're not focused and acclimated to the woods. And what I mean by acclimated is like when you first get out there for the first 20 minutes, you're not focused. You're just kind of, I don't know, you're not set in yet. But after time of being out in the woods, like everything quiets down. You can really hear all the sounds and just tell what's going on. But I mean,
So you started going out every day, huh? What went on when you were doing that? What was going on, and continue.
All right. So yeah, after I saw the old Squatch, I got the camera and I was like, all right, hunting's gonna have to take a break. I'm gonna go out there and film this. So it's a big circle driveway, and it's probably about 300 yards wide and about 150 or 300 yards going long ways and about I'd say about 80 to 100 yards the width. There's 2 roads that lead to our driveway. Yeah, 2 roads that lead to our driveway, and there's just like an island in the middle, and that's kind of where it's all going on at. And I don't think like that's where they're living at, but like that's a really good spot where deer are crossing at. So yeah, I was walking around there, just really paying attention to the woods, just looking at every pocket, just as far as I could see. And like if a bird moved, I was looking, and I was really paying attention. So then I realized like, okay, I haven't been going through the woods and really looking at everything like I should. I'm dismissing a lot of things. So yeah, I started going around and I started finding more tree structures. And what I mean by that is just like big trees jammed, like rotten trees jammed in between trees, and then there's just a bunch of sticks piled in there, and then they'll even take like a tree and bend it down and put it underneath there, because there's no way one of those trees got underneath all those old ones. It doesn't make sense.
I know, man.
But anyway, I'm doing that, and I'm doing that every day, every single day. I mean, hours every day, just going around the island. And one day I was on the far side of the island, and I heard that same squirrel sound. And when I was walking, like there's a tree that blocked me, like as soon as I heard that sound. So like I look over like around that tree, and I'm just locked. Like I'm just locked in that position. And I see what looks like a black arm that goes like behind a tree. I just see a black limb, just kind of hide behind the tree. And I wasn't sure what I saw, but I'm still locked onto that spot. And that's when it looked out. We still here?
We're here.
Yeah, it's frozen.
Okay.
That's all.
There for a second. But yeah, it looked out from around the tree, and it was staring at me while I was staring at him, because I was locked onto it. And he kind of looked around, and when he saw me, his eyes got super big. And he saw me about 2 seconds after that. He goes down just super quick, like it was lightning fast. And there was a big oak tree that he was hiding behind, and there was just like some, I don't know, it was probably like poison ivy and sticks and stuff. But when he went down, like he completely disappeared, and I made sure that I looked left to right, and I didn't see. He didn't go one way or the other. Like he must have got on all fours and just went straight back, because I didn't see him after that. Once he ducked down, that was it. But the thing about it, this was a baby. Like it wasn't an adult one. It was like, I would say equivalent to like a 5 or 6 year old. But
What
yeah,
makes you say that?
As,
what makes you say that? Just because of the size?
Yeah, because he was only like probably about 4 feet tall. He wasn't very tall at all, and I don't know why.
Just try your settings at the bottom. Just press the settings and press the camera, and just see if you can get your camera back on.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was still froze there.
Yeah, it's okay. Just can't see you yet, that's all.
Okay. What about now?
No. Just click the setting to go to the top option. It says select your camera.
Okay, so like my menu is on the bottom, and I see like audio, video, flip, chat, and I hit video. Oh, there it is. Something popped back up.
It's still frozen, but
Still.
maybe it'll come good.
Your audio is perfect though, so yeah. I mean, if you're having trouble with it, you want to just continue like this and just continue having them lay it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see some questions here. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jamie.
Just saying, I thought if we could get him back, it would be good just to see him as he's telling his story. But yeah, we'll keep going. Sorry, Miguel.
Oh yeah, I don't know if it's my camera or the internet or what's going on, but
we can hear you though. So you said he was about 4 foot. Then you thought it was about 4 foot.
Yeah, because right. I mean, he was really clumsy. Just kind of. I don't know, the way you didn't hear me, because there's on the island, what I call the island, that middle part, the middle section of woods, there's one that's a paved road and the other one that's gravel. And I was walking on the asphalt part, on the paved part, and I stepped like on a piece of rock, and it just like made this, I don't know, this loud sound. And that's when I think he got up, and when I looked, all I saw was a jet black arm with kind of like matted hair going behind the tree. And it went real slow too, just super slow. And yeah, about, I'd say, I don't know, I can't really tell time, but it seemed like 10 or 15 seconds after that, I was locked on that position. Like I said, he peeked straight out, kind of looked around, saw me, his eyes got really big, and he dipped. Like he went down super fast. And I didn't see him go left or right after that.
So he what you're describing sounds like he realized the value of the cover he was behind, and he stayed right behind it and ran straight back on all fours is what you're quickly.
He had to have, unless he jumped into some portal that I don't know about.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with that particular explanation of running on all fours for now. But I get it, right? And so it can be disconcerting when you approach a spot where you just saw this thing, and then I've been in your shoes. But let me ask you this: did you see any tracks or anything did he leave any sign that he was standing there? And I know firsthand they can be there and not leave sign, but did you find any tracks?
Not that day, no.
Okay.
I looked, didn't see anything. Like I looked for, hair, poop, tracks, anything. But no, like when he dipped, when he got out of there, it was no different than like a deer leaving, like a deer seeing you and just taking off. Like totally did what a wild animal would do, just smarter.
Well, I think sounds like maybe he thought you didn't see him to begin with, and then when he peeked around the tree, he was like, "Oh man, this dude's watching." Okay, so
yeah, like I was watching him.
Is what it sounds like. Sounds like a young one, man. Resemblance to the older guy.
Didn't look the same. Like, all right, man, it sucks that my camera's not working because I drew up a picture.
Oh, okay. Well, that figures.
Yeah.
Right.
When he said his eyes, sorry, Mark. I just want to say, when he said his eyes opened, was he more like the other one was angry? Did this one look more alarmed or shocked to see you?
Yeah, he looked really shocked, and he didn't look. I mean, he was harmless. His eyes were. I could see a lot of the white around his eyes. Like, I could see a lot of white, and then I could see two little fangs from the distance that I was at. I could see two teeth, like the sharp teeth that you have. I can't remember what those are called.
Canine.
Yeah, I could see two. Canine. Yeah, the canines sticking out. The top one sticking out, and they were white. I mean, they were like dental white. But his face was cone shaped.
Okay.
Yeah, it was cone shaped head. It was jet black, kind of like those really cool cats that you see that are like really fluffy, and the hair is like jet black and super soft. It was basically like that, or like a black bear or something, kind of like that.
Length of hair? Any hair on his body that was varying lengths?
No, it looked about to be the same size all the way around, except maybe a little bit shorter on his head. But even like on his head, it was jet black all the way through. Like on the old one, I could see like the charcoal on his face, and he didn't have as much hair. This one was like covered with hair all the way. Like I
Skin
couldn't really
color?
see his nose. I couldn't see any skin. Like it was all hair. I could see the whites of his eyes and his fangs. His
Wow, he had
teeth, whatever
hair
you want.
all over his face, huh?
Yeah, that's what kind of shocked me is like, wow, they look different too. They don't all look the same, but you know, it made sense to me at that time because I was thinking like a little kid doesn't look the same as like, you know, your old grandpa that has like, you know, his nose is a lot bigger, his ears got a lot bigger, you know, a lot more wrinkler or, you know, a lot more wrinkles, but yeah, you know, there's that difference, you know.
Wow.
And
So
that's the way I look.
What were you thinking about this now? At this point, like it sounds to me like because you were expecting it and you were really learning, right, as you went along, like this is around your house, right? All of this is happening right around your house.
Yeah, man, that's the crazy part.
And okay, now when were those incidents in relation to now? Like how long ago was this?
The little one, that was a month ago.
Oh, okay. So this is current stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
What are you doing about it?
I'm filming with my camera, going out there, but I mean, like I film, but I don't really get much. Like I need to use camera stabilization gear, you know, something to keep the camera steady because just freehanding it, man, you could just like breathe the wrong way and it's moving so fast you can't tell what's going on. But yeah, I'm going
tripod, right? Tripod.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Tripod. And let me ask you this, right? So you're going out there, you're trying to look into this now, and it sounds like you're trying to capture them on film. What time of day? We know the one was just after dark, right? The first one, but the second one was daylight. Is that correct?
Yeah. This is like the first one was like 10.
Okay.
10 a.m., 11 a.m. And then the
younger one. I'm
started...
talking about the old guy now. The old guy was at night, right?
Oh, no. When I was looking for mushrooms.
Yeah.
Like, no, that was 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. So he was up in some shade. He was up in some shade, and when the shade he was in was dark enough where you couldn't make out all the features because it was so shaded.
Yeah, I mean, it was mainly just thick through there with just trees and brush, but it's just the fact that he was so dark, like his hair was so dark, his face was so dark, and maybe his eyes, like it looked really dark, but I could really see the wrinkles going across his forehead. But as far as his eyes and his mouth, it was harder to tell, you know, what that looked like. Yeah, I didn't get to see that question. It popped up so quick.
I was going to say, how close have they come up? Have you noticed anything up at the house? Literally at the house, or is it just on the land around it?
That's my theory about them living so close to town and so close to our house, and there being kind of other houses around, is that they don't really try to mess with people. They're not trying to give themselves away. Like why they whistled at me, I don't know. To get my attention, I mean, obviously, but they're not trying to let people know they're there. They're running. When I see them, they're out. You know, they're not trying to let me know. But I mean, yeah, they're definitely evading people.
So, but it does sound like you've got enough information from the encounters that you've had to really start taking a look at what was going on. What we found is that they tend to do the same things at the same times of the day in the same areas. And so, you know, I would recommend, if you're interested in trying to document one of them, which I think would be a good idea if you can do it safely, is to take a look at the times and the locations and the weather and the temperatures, and try to be in those areas, in those same situations, ready to shoot at those times. I don't know. It's interesting to me that you said you grew up on this property.
Yeah.
And this all began how many months ago, or how many years ago, before you even noticed what was going on your property now, not the other stuff, just around your house? When did this start?
I mean, the actual sightings probably started like, I don't know, like 2 months ago, or no, probably like 3 or 4 months ago. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, the beginning of summer, that's when I started actually noticing things. But I mean, as far as like the tree breaks and the tree structures, I've noticed that for like, I don't know, 6 years, give or take.
Okay. So that's what that
I'm
was.
not writing this down. It's hard for me to.
Okay, that was what I was
Hard
getting.
for me to give a time.
What I was getting at was, are you looking back now and seeing instances where, you said 3 months ago, 4 months ago, this all began, where you started really having the incidents. But if you think back, were there any incidents that you were having trouble explaining? You said you've hunted these areas for a long time. Any deer taken from you? Have you heard any knocks?
Yeah. That's the thing, is like I'd have deer taken from me, and it's like I had such a well-placed shot. There was such a good blood trail, and all of a sudden it's just gone. Like there's no blood, no deer, But it could have been a bad shot. Then also, I found rabbits with no heads, and I was like, man, coyotes are brutal, But recently, I don't know whose show it was on YouTube that I saw, but somebody was talking about that. Like, oh, well, there's that.
You're saying rabbits with no heads. Okay, so let's just let me get a question in here about this. When you found the rabbits with no heads, or are you finding the heads?
No, just the head gone. And I don't know if an animal does that. I'm not saying this is Sasquatch, but I'm saying that's what I thought.
you said the heads are gone, so you're finding the body of the rabbit?
Yeah, just the body.
Where at in relation to your house?
Right, like probably about 20 yards or 30 yards from me, like on this gravel road.
Out in the open on your gravel road, on the side of the road? Was it near the area?
In the middle of the road.
In the middle of the road?
I think. Yeah.
And let me ask you this. Is it around the area where the whistles occurred?
Yeah, probably like 40 yards from it.
Okay. Hey man, there's something going on there, man. And I've had interviews with people and been to properties, one in particular in North Carolina, where for years the guy lived up there. I think at that point he was on this mountain for 18 years. He has he's an herbalist, and he has the side of his ridge, or the side of the mountain that he lives on, he has it plateaued for farming, and he's an herbalist, and for years, man, he had like little things and he couldn't explain or whatever, but he started noticing herbs, his plants were molested, right? And I'm just talking about homeopathic herbs. Like he's known for high quality herbs on the eastern seaboard, but some of the stuff he was planting was being taken, and then headless rabbits began to appear on his property and on his porch. And I think what we surmised from the situation was that there was some type of a trade thing going on, is what it seemed to be, where they were taking things but then supplementing him, as if to say, here, you know what I mean? And that was going on. I think that was a couple instances of that with this particular gentleman. So how many times has that happened since this started?
Well, the rabbit thing hasn't happened since this started, but it was going on before it.
It was. Okay. Did you notice any disturbances on your property when the rabbits were going on? Anything come up missing?
No, because at this time, when the rabbits were missing, I wasn't living at this property. I lived at a place right across town for a little bit, but yeah, I moved back not too long ago. But I mean, I always come here. It's a 5-minute drive.
Okay.
Get in the car and get in the woods and hunt. But
What would
Yeah,
be the purpose,
fine,
though,
yeah,
of ripping the heads off the rabbit? I mean, in this case, the heads off the rabbit. I mean, in this case, and a lot of these things that you hear where Sasquatch apparently come and raid the stock, and you know, I don't get the point of it if it's not to eat. You know.
yeah.
That's
I'm
right.
not sure, but
I think it.
I had to.
really do believe it has something to do with gifting. I think it does. I think
Yeah.
there's a good chance that they understand that you're living there, and it may be a situation where they're actually trying to gesture communicate with you. You know, through gesture, we find that that's really what's going on. We've experienced this a lot. We have that same kind of situation going, not with rabbits, but with other stuff down here in Florida, and then looking at this, I've heard this all over the country. And I just think, you know, there's enough information coming from people like you, Miguel, who have these circumstances on their properties where I just talked to Kerry, 4 or 5 days ago. And I think he may have just been at the property where they were doing the same thing. They're finding rabbits with their heads pulled off. And here they've got tracks where these things have been in their backyard, that kind of situation. I don't know if he's been at that. That was the one he went to this week, but we were talking about him going there on the phone, and I thought about this, and you're probably the 30th person that I've had the pleasure of interviewing that has had this exact same dynamic with rabbits on their property. There's too much patterning, and there's a pattern in this. You know what I mean? I mean, I think it's something that you may be able to actually take advantage of to get a shot of one of these guys. I would pay attention to what's going on with those rabbits, and when you approach a situation where there's a rabbit there, it wouldn't surprise me if there was an individual in the area right there somewhere watching you, seeing what you're going to do.
Oh wow, yeah, and I guess before the major sightings that I had here on the property, with the whistles, seeing the older Bigfoot and the younger one. And that's another key thing is, you know, one was old and the other one was young, you know. I really feel like the old one didn't really want to run off because he was old. Yeah, that's why he just walked off and was really angry looking. And the little one, you know, he was really shocked, but, you know, he wasn't experienced as the older ones. So I think I saw him because there's an old one, you know, caught him off guard, and a younger one caught him off guard. But as far as like the middle-aged ones, juveniles, like parents, I can't see them. I try.
Well, you know, you've got them because in looking at what you have seen, you've got the elderly, and based on your description anyway, you've got an older one and you've got a younger one. So there's a male and a female somewhere there breeding.
Right.
I mean, and the reality of it is that these things you're looking for the rest of the family group in this. And the end of it, man, they've probably been there for a long time. And I think something you must have, I think if you go back and you look at your behavior in that area, something happened or you did something somewhere and got their attention. Because if this just started, there's only two things it could be: that they've been there for a long time and they've chosen to reveal themselves to you, or they've been very curious about what's going on and they've been revealed through circumstances in the way you described it. An old guy didn't really know what was going on and you caught him, and the young guy inexperienced. And we've had this same kind of dynamic in our research in different areas. But the other thing is that somehow they've been displaced or chose to leave the area they were in, and they've taken a stake out right there in the last few months. What's your take on all that, man? Have you been finding things over the years on your property? Is this a representative of you went in too far maybe one day, or you went into an area you didn't go into and found something, and then they started to get curious about your property? I mean, think about those situations.
Right. I really feel like it has to do with hunting, like where I set up and where I'm coming into the woods at. Because like where I found their structures, right there where they whistled at me at, where I parked my Mustang at, those structures and tree breaks, they're right along a drainage ditch that leads into the creek. And like that's the best spot for the deer. And like, why wouldn't they be right there? And also like you can walk around in the woods and it's super hot. Like I've been doing, you know, this past couple months, it's super hot. It's like 90 to almost 100 degrees and it's just super humid. like I said, all the bugs out. But where they're hanging out at, like you can see mud through the leaves. Like it won't evaporate. Like it's really cool. You can feel when you walk into those structures, like it's almost like someone turned a fan on, and it's a lot cooler. And that's what deer are doing too. They're just trying to get in a cool spot and get cover, you know.
Yeah, temperature variation, and we use that theory down here. It works well. Any of the warmer or humid hot regions, I think that's a huge factor. The fact you're talking about creek beds and ditches, and you're finding the structures in the areas where there's a higher degree of temperature variation is something that you can use, man. So, you know, I hope you're paying attention to all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It really sounds like you got a situation there that you know, it's an opportunity if you're serious about it, and it sounds like you are. You know, you're putting the effort in. I don't think it'll be very long before you are emailing Carrie back here with a shot if you haven't already. Have you gotten anything on film yet?
I mean, honestly, I have hours of video footage, but I haven't reviewed it. I kind of review just like my still shots, my photos, but. Like I said, I need that tripod because I'm really looking at a lot of movement. I need some more stabilization. Go ahead, Daniela.
In your experience, Mark, you know, when people say they've seen one, there's a likelihood that there's other ones around, isn't there? Is there?
Well, I mean, it depends on the situation. Like, yeah, I've interviewed a lot of people and they've seen one and they were looking at one, and we've got an eyewitness tonight, right? He saw one. It moves off, then he sees another individual. I think that in these particular situations, it's different than most eyewitnesses. Most eyewitnesses are interacting with the environment on a very superficial level. The majority of the general public interacts with the wilderness on a very superficial level, and so they're not going to be in those areas. I think what makes the encounter tonight, Miguel's encounters, more special is that, first of all, he's a skilled woodsman, right? You can't grow up running around in these woods and not understand what goes on out there. I mean, there's stuff out there that can get you. So we have got a trained observer, a wilderness observer. And anytime you spend anybody spends that much time in the wilderness becomes that. You have to. It's a part of staying safe. You know what I mean? So the fact that it's on his property, this seems to be a pattern with family groups. The individual situations, I think, are situations, like I said, where people are interacting with the wilderness on a very superficial level. We have situations like Carrie's where he saw one, but Carrie's also described many situations that possibly lay out a group of them around him on several different instances. When I talked to him, he described that. And I've talked to many people in these hunting situations where they have this same experience. They'll see an individual, but then if they keep hunting the area against better judgment, right, they'll see other individuals. And in that, you're going to get the size changing. What does that represent ultimately? It sounds like a family group. It sounds like it sounds like your family. You know what I mean? There's different ages, there's different sizes. And so, yeah, I think that in a lot of these situations, the fact that people interact with the wilderness on a superficial level and they're only there for a day or two if they're camping, or maybe they're just there for a day for the hike, we don't get the information unless somebody does a solid long-term investigation on the area. If you can get in there, boots on the ground, and do long-term investigation, Miguel, like the opportunity that you're being presented with, there's a damn good chance that if you've seen a male in that area, there's a family group. He's got family. That's what this ultimately represents. They're hominoids. And so that's what hominoids produce, family groups. You know what I mean? So I found your encounters tonight really interesting. There's a lot of data there for you. Are there any other questions before we sign off tonight?
I'm just looking through now. I was just going to mention that Bill Tucker actually has young ones coming and throwing stuff at the house. And I was actually chatting to him one night, and I was saying, "What are they doing?" He's just saying they just want attention. It's like they want attention. I don't know why, but the younger ones seem to be pushing it, maybe, or getting a bit complacent with wherever they're at, or if they're familiar with those. You said it earlier. What did you say? What did you say, Mark? How they act is a little bit. Was it arrogant or
Yeah, well, you know what it is, I think, and this is something from experience, and I don't know that you've had these situations, Miguel, but in looking at this, what seems to be happening, and this is from an outside perspective, if I remove myself from my research and I remove myself from the situations that we're talking about tonight and I look at it ultimately, I think what we're seeing here is a response to the obliviousness that human beings have to their presence. I think that they're there watching, and for years we could be walking right past them and they're just inside the tree line 30, 40, 50 feet away. And at times they may even be checking your awareness and you don't even see them then because they have the hair, the skin, the achromatic thing. And then there's, light levels and the diffusion properties and factors, all that stuff in time of day, all that. And so they may be actually literally trying to get your attention. The whistling, that's obvious. Why would you do that if you weren't trying to get somebody's attention? That's how you get someone's attention. You whistle, right? My dad used to do that when we were kids. If we were way outside of the area we were supposed to be in, you'd hear it from half a mile away. I'd be like, damn, we're in trouble now. You know what I mean? So in looking at it, that to me suggests that. In addition to that, you got the rabbits popping up. This is just my diagnosis of the situation from experience. It may be something completely different, but I would venture a guess, Miguel, that if you engage with them in some type of a trade, I think you'd be shocked at what happens next. I think you'll be shocked at what happens next. And I encourage you to try something like that as safely as possible,
I'm going to.
Yeah.
I've really cut it down since bow hunting season. I've been scaring a lot of deer. So at this point, I'm kind of thinking I'll just go hunt somewhere else and do my research there.
Right. Well, look, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. Oh, we got another question here. Oh, this is for me. Okay.
It's come up a few times.
No, it was not. It was not Joe Hollis. It was a man who wished not to be named, which, in my book he had some really interesting information going on there. I think that isolation had a lot to do with what he was thinking about what was going on. He did eventually see one. But there's some terrifying stuff going on in the Smoky Mountains, man. And in these areas, man, it's, you're living on the mountain by yourself, or in Miguel's situation, I don't know. Do you have family staying with you, or are you by yourself on the property when you go to their hunt?
I'm always by myself.
Yeah, man. So, there's always that factor when you go to bed. And I've been in this situation, in these types of situations where you've got them on people's property. I'm alone, staying in the place, conducting my investigation. And I'm hearing rocks hit the house. I'm hearing footsteps on the porch below where I sleep at 1:30 in the morning. And I'm trying my best to ignore it. You know what I mean? And it's like, you got to get sleep. You got a full day the next day. But these are the kind of things that are going on. So, hey, man, listen, I want to thank you wait, what was the last question? What do you got? Weird lights.
Did I?
Have you seen any big lights, Miguel?
Yeah. Here's the weird thing. After the whistles, I went back that night and I saw two lights. They kind of looked like they were swinging, like if someone was holding a cell phone. I don't know if it was people or not, but I'm not sure really. I wasn't really paying attention to it. But yeah, I did see some lights, but not sure what it was. Anything
after that? Just moving through the forest or flying overhead? Anything strange?
No, I mean, ever since then, I've had the smells. It smells like stale pee or like a skunk smell. I've, had wood knocks only at night. It sounds like owls are talking to each other, but they sound like really dumb owls. They're like, ooh, 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 ooh. And,
right.
I try to get it on film, but I can't get a good one. But
it's like a guy attempting to sound like an owl.
Right.
Yeah.
And I got possible footprints. I don't know. Or tracks. I sent Daniela one picture of one, and I sent Carrie a different picture of another, but it rained after I found them, so I don't know. But I mean, as far as the shape, yeah, kind of looks like there's toes, but I mean, it's not definite. But it's right there where I've seen them or heard the whistles. So
wow, okay,
it's all stacked.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you stick to those damp areas, you will find tracks eventually. If they're still in the area, the damp areas that'll take a track, you will find them. Also, I'll tell you this, a little trick. If you go back into the areas where you're where you found the impressions and the surrounding leaf litter in those areas, pick a spot, bring a rake with you, rake the ground. If there's a bunch of ground, like leaf litter and all that kind of stuff, rake the leaf litter. You'd be amazed what's under that leaf litter as far as tracks. It's amazing.
Really?
Yeah, I did that once in Florida, and there's impressions, man. Wow. It's kind of shocking, but the leaf litter kind of balances it out so you can't see it, Well,
that's the thing. I sometimes see tracks where leaves are, but I'm like, I can't take a picture of that. That could be anything, but now that's good to know.
Yeah, pull the leaf litter out and you'll get a more defined impression. But in addition to that, you may find something that's been covered up by leaf litter, and gently with the rake if you're going to bring it, or even a light broom or something. But anyway, listen, Miguel, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight for Carrie and Daniela and Bigfoot Odyssey, man. It was great having you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think we should mention your site too, cryptoreality.us. I think it turns out Miguel's a big fan of yours.
Yeah, you know what? We just started a Patreon account to make up for YouTube. We left YouTube. We've got a Patreon account. So if you go to, Patreon. If you go to Patreon, Crypto Reality's on Patreon. I did also want to mention the upcoming expedition here in Florida that Bigfoot Odyssey and is coming down here. You guys are well aware of it. I know for a fact that it's important to get this funding so that we can accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So like Carrie always says, what you can kick it in, man. And we really appreciate all that stuff. These guys are coming down here, and I promise you we're going to do a good job. And we're going to an area that has Sasquatch, period. And so there's going to be plenty of opportunities for us to find large tracks all over the place and capture these guys on film. If we can get this technology that Carrie has lined up through this GoFundMe, and it's going to take that, there is a very good chance that we're going to capture these creatures on thermal that are going to be around us. And so I just encourage everybody to help out if you can, man. You know what I mean? And
well, Tracy Bowers, thank you, and Chuck Morgan tonight, they chucked in a little bit of cash, so we're grateful for that. And awesome. Like I say, if anyone just chucks in $5 each, and that would do it. And you could all be a part of something that I think it's going to be really, really great. So
yeah, I think so too. 7 days in that area, we're going to get something. We're going to get something. So,
and just one last message from Kerry: 96%. So we're getting there. We're getting there.
There it is.
So watch this space.
So the new film's coming. Make sure you guys watch for the notifications. Be sure to check your notifications. Make sure you're getting notifications for Bigfoot Odyssey. And yeah, man, I want to thank you guys for having me on as a guest host. And Miguel, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks, Miguel. And we'll have you back on, Miguel, if you've got a bit further, if you've done a bit of gifting or whatever, and you've got some new stuff to tell us, we'll definitely get you back on.
What you got? What's next for Bigfoot Odyssey? What day? What time?
What's next is, oh my God, I've got total blank. Oh, Wednesday. To be confirmed. To be confirmed.
Is it Blue Line?
It's not Blue Line, no, unfortunately. I do love a Blue Line Wednesday, but that's it's not Blue Line this Wednesday. We'll have to just wait and see who's coming on. Could just be me and Kerry, but we'll see anyway. So thanks, everyone. Have a good night, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
See you guys.